Hello, and welcome to Community Pulse, a bi-weekly CAN TV program featuring local leaders and organizations focused on improving the health and well-being in the city of Chicago. Community Pulse is presented by Foxglove Alliance, a public health care coalition supported by the Hectone Institute of Medicine in partnership with the Healthcare Council of Chicago, which is managed by Third Horizon Strategies and Hectone, and also Hectone Nurses and the Humanities. My name is Takora Love. I am one of the Community Pulse rotating co-hosts. I am with the Hectone Nurses and Humanities and the Academy of Medical Surgical Nursing. Yeah. In celebration of Nurses Week, which is now Nurses Month, the Community Pulse is pleased to highlight the significant role and impact of Hectone Nursing and Humanities and nurses, increasing the awareness of art and humanities. Today we are so very fortunate to have our featured guest, the world-renowned Mrs. Carolyn Smeltzer. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here. And I like the mission of what we're doing right now.
Yes, it is definitely inspiring. Carolyn is not only a nurse, she is a nurse leader. She's an author. She's an educator. She's a storyteller and a trailblazer.
You forgot historian. That's what I like best.
I was going to say, you know what? They would have figured it out once we started talking, because you are an absolute historian. And we're going to highlight 2 of your 6 books that are featured. But before we get to that, I just want you to take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience and let them know a little bit more about you.
I'm Carolyn Smeltzer, and believe it or not, it's hard for me to believe, I've been a nurse for 51 years. I graduated in 1972 from Evanston Hospital School of Nursing. I received my bachelor's degree from Purdue and a master's in Loyola, thankfully. My master's and doctorate from Loyola, thankfully, they supported a lot of my education. And I got very lucky by working at the medical center, Loyola Medical Center, where I continued to learn and work with faculty throughout my career.
You are right. I should have said Dr. Smeltzer.
That's okay.
I know. All right. So can you tell our audience what inspired you to want to become a nurse? 51 years, that is absolutely amazing. So what inspired you?
There's a couple things. The first and foremost was my uncle was diagnosed with leukemia at a very young age. He was 21. Mm-hmm. And I used to visit him at the VA hospital right across from what was then Northwestern University. And it was amazing to me to see the respect that nurses had and how they helped him live his life. It was at the same time that the Southside Chicago nurses were killed. And I was in the lobby at that time watching TV with all these veterans. And I've never seen anger like that in my life. They said, how could anyone hurt people that help people?
Yes.
And that's the day I learned about respect of nursing. Prior, I knew that nurses helped, but then I learned how respectful they were. And I thought, this is going to be a way of living, not just a job.
Yes.
I went to my 50th high school reunion, and this one gentleman came up to me, and he said, classmate of mine, said, Carolyn, I always envy you. And I said, why would you envy me? He said, because we were only 13 years old and you were saying you were going to be a nurse. I had no idea what I was going to do.
Wow.
I don't remember telling people that, but I knew it was in my heart.
That speaks volumes. And I agree, like nursing, it's innate. It's in your heart. Like sometimes you can't put it in words, but you know you want to help people.
Right.
It's just so inspiring.
It's like a way of life. It's not a job.
It's not a job. It is a passion, you know. Like I get choked up when I just talk about nursing and, you know, being a nurse myself. But it is very inspiring to sit next to you and, you know, over the course of the last months to become friends with you.
Right.
You know, I've done so much research on you and your books, you know. It is an absolute honor.
Thank you.
So one of our purposes here today is to bring awareness to diploma nursing programs, right? So can you talk a little bit for our audience to educate them a little bit on diploma nursing programs and increase that awareness? Can you share a little bit
Sure.
about diploma nursing?
Diploma nurses started, the diploma nursing program started out of the hospital care systems in the late 1800s. As hospitals became inpatients as opposed to just providing outpatient care, home health care in the home, there was a belief that they needed skilled nurses to provide care in the home as opposed to just experienced, basically ladies that had experience caring for their own sickness in their families. They needed education. And so within a hospital forming, the majority of them, 1 in every 9 basically, started a diploma school of nursing. Wow. It was twofold. It provided education for the nurses, the students that wanted to be nurses, plus it provided care for patients at the same time. So it was a combination, and it was all inclusive. You lived on the hospital property in a dormitory. It was in the beginning 2 years, but quickly became a 3-year program. You gave clinical, in my era, in the late 60s, 3 days a week, and received classroom studies the other 2 days a week. However, in the beginning, the student nurses worked 6 to 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and took the classes in the evening.
In the evening.
After they provided patient care.
Oh my gosh, I just found it so fascinating. So, we brought a copy of the book. When I tell you, this is a page turner. Just to go back in time and to relive those moments and the pictures, I couldn't even read a lot of the pages because I was just so enthralled with the pictures. You always hear about the nursing cabs, and of course we had makeshift nursing cabs when I went to school, and we had our standard uniforms. Of course, the uniforms had to be creased. You had to have your white shoes without any scuff marks.
That's exactly correct.
You could not have long earrings. Your hair had to be neat and it had to be up. So as you can see here, we have a nursing uniform, and I'll let Carolyn talk a little bit about this nursing uniform, but it's so nostalgic to be in a room with a nursing uniform of this caliber.
Well, this nursing uniform is pretty darn old. I got it in 1969 when I entered Evanston Hospital School of Nursing. And what's interesting, I moved 10 times, and how this uniform followed me, I don't know, because a lot of other stuff didn't. I think it's amazing to find out what you just cannot give away.
Yes.
Or you pack it away and don't even know you own it.
So true.
And I didn't remember that I had kept this uniform until my 50th anniversary from nursing school, which was last year. I was going through some boxes that I thought may have some memorabilia from Evanston Hospital School of Nursing, and look what I found. I found my candy stripe cap from being 15 years old at St. Anthony's Hospital in Michigan City, Indiana, along with my nursing school uniform. What's amazing about this uniform is Evanston Hospital School of Nursing was formed in 1898.
Wow.
And it closed in 1984. But throughout those years, they had 5 different uniforms, 3 different caps, and only 1 nursing school pin. When the students first started in 1898, they had to wear just cloth clothes for the first 6 weeks to 6 months because they were on probation. And so when they got off probation and signed a contract to say that they would finish the completed 3-year school, they were given 2 uniforms. They were given an outdoor uniform with a cape and an indoor uniform.
Yes.
Now, since the inception of Evanston Hospital School of Nursing, the uniforms have all student nursing uniforms always had some blue and white stripes in them. So although this book is in black and white,
Yes.
you can see through some of the narration that the uniforms were always blue and white.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's just so nostalgic. What inspired you to write this book?
I was never going to write another book. 5 books is plenty. But when I realized that we were going to be nurses 50 years, I thought it deserved a celebration. So I started going on social media trying to find 40 of the graduates that graduated with us in 1972. We were able to find 26. Of the 26, 3 had died. And when I knew that there would be some type of a nice party, because it is a celebration being a nurse 50 years, I went back to Evanston Hospital and I said, do you have any memorabilia that we could use for the night of the celebration? They said there had been a flood and everything's lost. Oh. And as I walked through the halls of Evanston Hospital, I just could not believe that there was not any remembrance on a wall that they ever had a nursing school. And so I thought this was pretty sad. Yeah. As we walked through the halls, and we walked through the halls 53 years ago, and we were practicing student nurses, and we were proud of our school, but there was nothing left of the school. Nothing. So I thought, well, nothing can be done about that. And then when I reached out to the classmates that I found, I asked them 3 questions. How did you select Evanston Hospital School of Nursing as your school of choice? 2, what was some memories, the best memories of the dormitory or learning environment? And 3, what about the last 50 years? The responses were overwhelming. Brought me to tears.
I can only imagine.
Brought me to tears sometimes. And I suddenly recognized I had so much information it had to be published. Now, the only bad part about publishing this book, and I can't say it's really bad, but it was interesting. I talked to the publisher. We wrote a proposal, and I said, can I use pictures that are 50 years old? Because I had to have 250 pictures to start the book. And they said, yes, we consider 50-year-old pictures vintage, which meant I was vintage and all of my classmates were vintage. That was the sad part about this book. But I thought no one ever is going to forget that there were diploma schools of nursing because we served a purpose. And I have a feeling that as we're aging, history is being taught less, and the current nurses, more recent nurses and more recent faculty, perhaps never even heard of a diploma school of nursing. So and true. I thought that was sad, because we should remember whose shoulders we stood on.
So very true.
And even as I wrote this book, I learned so much about the history of Evanston Hospital School of Nursing that I was unaware of when I went to the nursing program. So the inception of the book was there was no memorabilia from Evanston Hospital. 2, we were proud of our school. And 3, I wanted diploma education to be recognized as history before we die, because we're aging. So don't ask us 30 years from now, we're not going to be around. So let's tell the story now.
I love it. I love it. Now let me just circle back and ask you a question. You said one of the 3 questions you asked everyone was, why did they choose Evanston Hospital?
Yes.
And why did you choose Evanston Hospital School of Nursing?
Well, the reason I chose, if I can recall, Evanston Hospital School of Nursing, it was inexpensive, but I think all School of Nursings were. My tuition for room and board were $350 a semester.
Oh my gosh! Wow!
And I think we got some food included in that, and the books were included too. My parents at the time really didn't believe in educating women, but that didn't deter me from wanting to be a nurse. So I saved money and I knew that I could afford this. The second thing is, it's not like it's done today, but I took the train from Michigan City. I stopped at Wesley and Passavant.
Yes.
And then I ended up taking the L to Evanston. And I thought, my gosh, Evanston was beautiful.
For sure.
The
really
school was eloquent. I mean, if you could walk into this lobby, I don't even remember ever seeing a fireplace before. There was a fireplace in the lobby. Unbelievable chairs, now you would call it a throwback in time, but then it was just elegant. And I got to meet now or then Dr. Marjorie Byers, the director of the school, and she was just so kind. And you could tell that they wanted to provide a good education. All their faculty at that time were baccalaureate prepared, not true everywhere. And so I thought they had an educated faculty. The hospital was noted for research, and I knew that at the time. And they were associated with Northwestern. And so I thought, and I did, walk to Northwestern campus and thought, this is where I'm going to be taking my electives. And so I can get on a campus at a very cheap rate, So I think it was a combination of the faculty, the elegance of the school, the affiliation with Northwestern, and knowing the hospital was an excellent hospital that was a teaching and research hospital also.
Wow.
But some of the reasons I got, like one of my classmates said, it was between Evanston Hospital and Michael Reese. She went to both libraries. She fell in love with the library at Evanston Hospital, and that's how she chose it. Another student ended up saying that she was the only one from the small town in southern Illinois to go away to school, and she chose it because it was close to the lake.
That's a good reason.
Yet another student went to look at all of the nursing caps where she had applied to nursing. And she said she did not want to fly away like the flying nun in her nursing cap. So she chose Evanston that had a more tailored nursing cap.
That's interesting.
Oh, the reasons were fascinating, actually.
Gosh. Now, for a moment when you were talking about the campus, you closed your eyes. And it felt as if you were transposed back into time, Can you talk a little bit about dormitory life at Evanston? Because I really appreciate when we were conversing, I really appreciated the stories that you shared about dormitory life.
First of all, I was reminiscing when I closed my eyes because the dormitory is now a parking lot for Evanston Hospital. And the hospital, because I've been in it recently, is unrecognizable to me.
Wow.
Dormitory life at Evanston was very interesting simply because we all had private rooms, and that wasn't true in the majority of nursing dorms. The second thing, and they advertised it as a reason for coming to Evanston, is every room had running water, which means we had a sink. And that wasn't true in dormitory living. And so the dormitory life, we had one telephone per floor. And so if you had a telephone come in, it would buzz in your room, and you would go out and use the community telephone. But you only could use it a certain amount of time because other important phone calls to students were coming in. We had one student that ended up putting a Pepsi cap on the ringer so that if she went to the restroom or she went out for a little while, she would know whether she had an important phone call. And she would try to determine who was calling her. The other thing about it is we had an operator of the telephone. So there were no secrets in the dorm because students could make extra money by working the telephone as a telephone operator. And the fascinating thing that might distinguish Evanston Hospital from other schools that people have at least told me, the Evanston Hospital School of Nursing was just like any other, except Robert Rutford was dating one of the student nurses.
I remember us talking about that.
And of course, we knew this from the switchboard operator. He'd come on Friday night, take her to the Playboy Club up in Lake Geneva. And of course, there would always be a group of student nurses waiting to see Robert Rutford. Because right down on Central Ave, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was playing. And so that kind of made him famous. And like I said, he was showing up in the dormitory lobby many Friday nights, much shorter than you think. And one of the students went up to him, and this is the last time he ever showed up, and said, "If you're Robert Rufford, I'm Elizabeth Taylor." And he never showed up at the dorm. I think she had to go outside the dorm to meet him in his car.
I remember when we were talking, you were talking a little bit about the rules that they had in the dorms. How often was like family or, opposite sex allowed to come and visit? And then they also had to be in the common area, right?
Yes. Okay, so let me go back to 1898, and let's say that by 1969 we had advanced, but nothing like it's advanced today. In 1898, first of all, you could not leave the dorm or the hospital premise without permission from the director of nursing. You literally had to have permission to go outside the dorm. And she, at that time, also inspected you to make sure that you looked proper, because you had to have your cape on and you were representing Evanston Hospital at all times. The other interesting thing in 1898 was the students worked 6 to 7 days a week. And sometimes, if staffing was okay in the hospital, they could have Sunday afternoons off. So that's about the only afternoon they could ask permission to come out. Now, fast forward to 1969. We had to have permission in writing from our parents to stay out to 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Now, they could write an exception letter if we were babysitting, and we could stay to 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And, of course, in the lobby of the dorm, there were these little cubby holes. And that's where your date or someone that's your guest, they would sit here, just like we're sitting here, in a little cubby hole, and they were carved out. So, and of course, they were open, so everyone could see what was going on in this cubby hole. But there was no men allowed in the dormitory, the sleeping quarters of the dormitory, simply because that was the rule, and there were no male nursing students either
at the time.
At that time. On Sundays, once a month, a visitor could come up. Again, if it was a male boyfriend, you needed permission from your parents. But if it was your father or something, they could come up once a month, a brother. But when they came up, you had to yell, "Man on floor," so that all the student nurses would be properly attired on a Sunday afternoon.
I remember that from nursing school.
Yes, yes.
So also, we have to wrap up soon, but I also wanted to take a moment to highlight another book that you wrote, which is fascinating yet again, and the photos. But this is Ordinary People, Extraordinary Lives. Another amazing book. I'm going to also highlight this one again, an image so that you guys can see this one. So I think we have a couple more minutes, but briefly, what are some key points that you would like for our audience to remember about diploma nursing, about nursing, and about Evanston? Anything that you would like to share?
Yes. The book I wrote is about Evanston Hospital School of Nursing. However, it's only illustrative and is illustrative of all hospital schools of nursing at that time. In the 70s and the 80s, there was a discussion regarding where should nurses be educated. And of course, the winning argument was within a university. And that's the right answer. However, there was never a look back on diploma schools of nursing. And we were excellent nurses. We never had a hard time finding a job. And from day one, we knew how to care for patients because we had done it for 3 years, 3 days a week. So if you want to understand how nurses were educated up until the 1980s, basically, if you want to understand what the majority of nurses that provided care in the United States were like and how they lived when they were student nurses, I suggest you look at this book. And if you were one of those diploma nurses or if you were a faculty, read this book and it will bring back so many memories, laughter, tears, and joy of what it was like being a diploma School of Nursing graduate as well as a student.
Yes, for sure. And even for myself, reading that book, it took me back to my time at nursing school. And as I told you when we were speaking, it also ignited the need for me to go back and journal and write those things down that, transpired in nursing school and even in my nursing career. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
It is time for us to wrap up. I would like to once again thank Carolyn Smeltzer for her time, expertise, and the dedication to art and the humanities. I would also like to thank CAN TV nonprofit service team for their support in the production of this program, as well as Hectone Nursing in the Humanities. My name is Takora Love. Thank you for watching Community Pulse, which airs on CAN TV, Channel 21, and is also available for streaming at cantv.org. Be well, Chicago. Have
Thank
a good
you.
day.
Happy